All right, welcome back. Unit 4, American Political Ideologies and Beliefs. Let's get right to it. All right, so we have American political culture. So we're talking here about the shared values that most Americans together have. So we're not making a distinction based on ideology or party. Most Americans believe in things like liberty, individualism. You have the list here in front of you. So liberty, we're talking about freedom. Individualism, you could also say personal responsibility, or the idea that each one of us is ultimately responsible for his or her own self. Equal opportunity, but not necessarily equality of results. Free enterprise, meaning that we have some kind of a market system, market-based economy in which people are allowed to choose what they want to do with their time, with their resources, where they want to work, what they want to sell, how they want to sell it, those sorts of things. Again, ideas from the beginning of the year: rule of law, no person is above the law, and a government that only has powers that are given to it by the Constitution through the people. All right, so we're going to start talking about ideologies, and so before we get to that is political socialization. This is the process by which people acquire their political beliefs and ideology. So essentially, why is one person liberal while another is conservative? The answer is often has to do with their political socialization. And family and parents is the number one most important source of a person's political socialization. Now, some terms that go along with that, we have three here that are highlighted. Life cycle effects. This is where people focus on different issues at different points in their life. So young people tend to be more in favor of freedom, whereas older people, people with children and older than that, they tend to also focus more on security and safety, that kind of thing. Generational effects, now we're looking at how people vote and their political beliefs for people from different generations. So we're talking about millennials as a group, including when they're young and then as they get older and older and older. So this would be talking about going back silent generation, baby boomers, Gen X, and millennials, each having distinct things that have affected their political beliefs and development. And globalization, the idea that there has been this interchange between American ideals being brought to the world and ones from the rest of the world being brought to the US. All right, so we have our three main ideologies that we discuss in AP Gov: conservative, liberals, and libertarians. Conservatives typically favor traditional American values, respect for authority, law and order, and national defense. That would be a basic snapshot. Liberals, on the other hand, prefer or favor an active role for the government in regulating the economy, and that it should also have an active role in promoting equality. Libertarians tend to want the least amount of government possible. They want to promote individual freedom and think that that should only be limited when it impedes on another person's rights. All right, so let's look at conservative ideology a little bit more closely. Conservatives typically favor increased defense spending, more police, more focus on punishing crime. This is part of that favoring social order over social freedoms. Often conservatives believe that the government should protect traditional values that could be religious, family values, even if this intrudes on individual freedoms. So along with that idea, conservatives are more likely to support vouchers to attend private schools. So again, taking money from taxpayers, from a state, and using it to help people attend private schools of their choice, and they're fine with that being a religious school as well. So again, less concerned with establishment clause issues, more concerned with traditional values. Conservatives typically favor less economic regulation and less government involvement to promote social and economic equality. So typically don't favor, you can just say that, Medicaid and welfare, food stamps, programs like that. Typically not supported by conservatives very much. And conservatives favor supply-side economics. So this is the idea that to stimulate the economy, the government should cut taxes to encourage businesses to grow, and then taxpayers will be able to have more money to spend more money since they won't be paying as much in the way of taxes. All right, liberals favor less defense spending, favor protecting the rights of the accused. So rather than worrying about making sure every guilty person is punished, more concerned with making sure that the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments aren't violated, and 7th and 8th for that matter. Believe that the government should not regulate private personal matters. So this is social freedom, social liberty. So things like being pro-choice, whereas conservatives are usually pro-life. Liberals support public education spending, oppose vouchers, especially when vouchers can be used to attend religious schools. So they often make a claim that the purpose of those vouchers is really to undermine public education and to secretly promote religious education, is what a liberal might say. Liberals often favor government spending to promote social and economic equality, so favor entitlement programs, favor things like Medicaid and food stamps and welfare, favor possibly even expanding those. And they typically are supporters of Keynesian economics, which is the idea that the government should stimulate the economy by spending money. So whereas supply-siders, conservatives say cut taxes to stimulate the economy, Keynesians typically focus on government spending to do so. So libertarians want the least government of all, so they typically favor a dramatic reduction in defense spending, decriminalization of so-called victimless crimes, which could include things like drugs and other things, protecting the rights of the accused, also supported by libertarians, often believe that the government should not regulate private personal matters, so again, social freedom, social liberty, favor privatization of education and expanded school choice, and little or no regulation beyond protection of property rights. So along with this minimal government, then there would be minimal taxation, but the government should not actively attempt to stimulate the economy. So they want low taxes, but they don't think taxes should be cut in order to stimulate the economy. They should just simply be low taxes. All right, the Democratic Party platform generally aligns more closely to liberal positions, while the Republican platform aligns to more conservative positions. And policy trends at a certain time often reflect the success that conservatives or liberals are having within political parties. So we kind of go through phases of more liberal or more conservative times. And monetary policy is the last of our policy section. The Federal Reserve can control the money supply and influence interest rates. And those two variables, money supply and interest rates, are inversely related. So when they increase the money supply, that means that they are lowering interest rates. And the result of this is to increase economic activity and decrease unemployment. So again, that third and fourth bullet point, increasing the money supply, lowering interest rates, increases economic activity, decreases unemployment. Doing the opposite, decreasing the money supply and raising the interest rate, slows down the economy and decreases inflation. So depending on what the goal is to fight unemployment, they would increase money supply and lower interest rates, and to fight inflation, they would decrease the money supply and increase interest rates. All right, so we get to public opinion and how we measure it. So we have a group of types of polls here. Entrance and exit polls are used to predict the election outcomes. This is on election day. These are polls taken of people who are exiting or entering the polling place, and they essentially ask people how they voted or are going to vote right then. So this is of actual voters, and it's used to gain insight into voter behavior, to be able to more quickly know who's likely to win, and analyze how various demographic groups voted, what the important issues were, that sort of thing. Opinion polls, when they're going to call somebody, typically it's calling on the phone. It could be a landline, it could be cell phone today in more modern times. They contact the person, they want to know their opinion on a variety of issues. Benchmark polls, this is something that a candidate would use. So a candidate would hire a polling company to run some benchmark polling for them before they announce their campaign. And they want to find out where they stand. So before, this gives them a baseline essentially. Before they've run, what numbers do they have? What are their strengths, their weaknesses? What kind of voters do they need to focus on? That sort of thing. Tracking polls are done continually. They can be daily or weekly, even monthly, but they're done over time. Something like, do you approve or disapprove of the job the president is doing? That's a tracking poll because they do that pretty frequently over time, and we can track the rise and fall of a president's approval like that. Focus groups, it's not a poll, it's where you actually would meet face-to-face with small groups of people, and they are gathered to discuss issues or candidates. It's not scientific because it doesn't meet those polling requirements to make it valid, but it does allow for deeper insight into a topic. So finding out that, hey, look, people like Mitt Romney better when he's wearing blue jeans than they do when he's wearing a shirt and tie. So then Mitt Romney, because the focus group says that, he starts wearing blue jeans in all his campaign rallies. All right, the elements of a valid public opinion poll. The sample must be random, which means that everybody in the population or the group has an equal chance of being selected. The sample must also be stratified, so the population is then divided into subgroups and weighted based on the demographics of that population. So you need to make sure that you have the right number of Democrats or Republicans, or of men or women, or of white, black, Hispanic, etc., or whatever groups you want to think of, but it must be stratified. Because you are using a sample of the population instead of the entire population, there will be a sampling error. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It's perfectly fine. If it's within 3% plus or minus, that is typically viewed as a valid poll with a small enough sampling error to be meaningful. So again, it's because you're sampling the population, so there could be some of your results could be just from random chance. And in the US, sample size that's valid is about 1,000 to 1,500 or so for the entire country. All right, the effect of public opinion could cause a bill to pass or not pass if it's strongly in favor or against. It can cause certain issues to become more important to lawmakers, so as they see it gaining importance to the public. It can cause candidates to slightly adjust their position, so they can tweak their position. Typically, this does not mean that a candidate would be like, oh, new polling, I'm going to switch to all the positions that this poll just revealed, but rather they might decide to focus more or less on certain things. It can affect decisions by the Supreme Court. We know even though the Supreme Court is not elected and they are protected from public opinion, at the same time, because they can't enforce their own decisions and because they also have concerns for the respect of the court and how it's viewed by the public, then sometimes that may be taken into account as well, that they don't want to drift too far away from public opinion. Opinion is most likely to matter when it is strongly unified on a particular issue. And then we have the question, is public opinion data reliable? And so if they have done all the things to make their polling valid, then it can give us some information. Probably shouldn't take it as gospel, but it can be reliable for us. All right, when we talk about public policy, we have these 7 steps. I'm not going to go too detailed into these. First, somebody in the public recognizes that there is a problem. The media engages in agenda setting, so they report about this issue. It becomes seen as more important to more members of the public. They demand action be taken. It gets placed on the government's policy agenda. So then we get to step 3 with policy formulation. So this can be part of Iron Triangle, committees, Iron Triangles, bureaucratic agencies making this, the details of this. Policy adoption, so Congress passes the bill, President signs it. Same thing with budgeting, and then it's implemented by either the bureaucratic agencies or the states, depending on the type of policy it is. And then at the end, we can stand back and look and evaluate how that policy has turned out. All right, so that's it for this video. Make sure you check out the rest of the series. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, this has been a La Money production.